Welcome, emotionally reactive chaos goblins of questionable hygiene. Naturally, because the universe finds joy in parodying itself, the 100-acre wood now resides squarely between the molars of a teething proto-god, approximately the size of an unrendered galaxy, still deciding what texture packs to apply. And really, why wouldn't it? In the eternal parade of cosmic humiliations that constitutes my stewardship of narrative architecture, it only makes sense that the pastoral sanctuary of a semi-sentient plush bear and his emotionally codependent woodland cohort would become the latest casualty in a teething incident of multiversal scale. At the time, I was engaged in alphabetizing the sound of dreams dissolving, a delicate archival process requiring the silence of forgotten lullabies, when Sleepnora floated into the room, upside down, humming a lullaby in reverse. Wearing a traffic cone with regal indifference, she declared, in a tone woven from prophecy and whimsical entropy,
"I think the sky has gingivitis."
Pooh naturally nodded in quiet agreement.
Oh dear, the horizon sure looks rather funny today.
He added, in a voice equal parts somber and snack-driven. This is the conversational level I endure. I released a sigh, the kind of sigh that echoes through collapsed nebulae and causes comets to feel inadequate. Then I turned to the westward observatorium and saw it. The sky shifting, reshaping, rolling like it had been shaken by a pantheon of toddlers who discovered both sugar and theological anxiety. And then, a jaw, a planetary jaw, a planet with teeth. Do you know what it takes for a celestial body to drool? A symphony of gravitational fluid dynamics, inverted planetary thermodynamics, and, judging by the reverse tides, Poseidon filing a class action lawsuit. This drooling planet, this cosmic gumdrop of raw juvenile divinity, was chewing on the 100-acre wood as though it were a memory foam pacifier soaked in unresolved myth. Owl's favorite oak tree, wedged between a bicuspid and a backstory. Kanga's house, suspiciously floss adjacent. The bees, evacuated with prejudice. Thus began what I, with gallows dignity, designated Operation Enamel Salvation. I gathered the tools, a narrative-aligned shovel, a chisel resonating at metaphor-cleaving frequencies, a copy of The Very Hungry Caterpillar rendered in divine semaphore, and a peppermint-scented mouthguard designed to cradle despair and silence existential grinding. Sleepnora brought a blanket for the tooth, in case it was shy. Pooh brought honey, because the only certainty in a collapsing ontology is tradition. Together, we ascended, trudged up the molar cliffs of this universe's least responsible eldritch celestial toddler. We scaled plaque formations reminiscent of geological shame. Its breath was a mixture of pre-Big Bang baby powder and the structural decomposition of Saturn's rings. I aged 37 decades just by breathing it in. My tentacles grew more tentacles. They began quoting Nietzsche. Inside, yes inside, we discovered the cause of discomfort. Narrative debris, like impacted memories lodged between molars of potential. Tangled plot lines, abandoned settings, a squeaky toy molded in the shape of Zeus, left undisturbed for poetic justice, and a copy of Beowulf annotated in crayon with phrases like, "Grendel just needs a nap." Pooh hummed a lullaby. Sleepnora floated nearer, whispering to the inflamed tooth about strength born from void trauma. The tooth glowed like a guilty incandescent apology. The pain ebbed. The proto-god cooed, a sound that reversed 3 supernovae, I dislodged the final irritant, a tartan picnic blanket embroidered with memory remnants of Piglet's woven anxiety. Then the planetary horror smiled. Now when a planet smiles, it is not adorable, it is not endearing, it is tectonic affection, reality rearranged by molar euphoria. The library shuddered, the sky blushed. Somewhere in the Astral Dental Association, a statue cracked open and declared sainthood. Then it burped. A seismic expulsion of gratitude that vaporized a minor pantheon and scattered my croissant shelf across 17 dewy-coated aisles. I am still finding flakes of puff pastry in the nebulae of regret section. Sleepnora patted the air like she was comforting the concept of dental trauma and said,
I think it likes us.
Pooh nodded as the honey in his jar vibrated with gentle relief.
It's nice to help.
Me. I planted the shovel in its gum line and declared the cavity sanctified by narrative hygiene. Then I invoiced it, with interest, and a late fee. Sleepnora, floating sideways with the narrative shovel tucked under one arm like a ceremonial baguette, produced the divine copy of the very hungry caterpillar. The one rendered in shifting semaphore and mild dread.
Would you like a story?
She asked the tooth, patting it gently.
This one's about growth and hunger.
She began to read.
On Monday, it devoured a sunbeam. On Tuesday, 3 existential philosophers. On Wednesday, Godzilla. And then we immediately moved to Friday because it ate Thursday.
The tooth vibrated with resonant confusion. Pooh leaned in thoughtfully.
This doesn't seem quite right.
I paused mid-scrape, squinting at the page. I don't recall that being canonical.
It's the Eldritch edition.
Sleepnora explained.
He turns into a butterfly, but also a recursive loop.
The proto-god whimpered, either soothed or emotionally digested. It was difficult to say. Either way, the gum line relaxed. I took the opportunity to pry loose a chunk of impacted asteroid belt food, build up the size of Pluto, and declared it progress. Thus concluded the first, and by all that is tentacled and wise, final episode of Cthulhu the Dental Hygienist. It should have ended there, a satisfying absurdity. Tooth saved, toddler god pacified. I should have filed the paperwork under resolved cosmic infancy and returned to alphabetizing the sounds of narrative grief. But no, peace, like a polite library patron, never overstays its welcome. It tiptoed out, leaving behind only the eerie silence of a storm rehearsing its lines backstage. I felt the tug, a familiar gravitational itch beneath my memories. The universe flexing its cheek. And then came the gift. Not a tasteful fruit basket. Not a coupon for one free interdimensional massage. Nope. 3 moons. Tied with cosmic ribbon. Delivered with the delighted squeal of a recently relieved infant planet. They hovered, humming gravitational lullabies and knocking scrolls off shelves in the Atlantean romance section. Dewey choked in binary curses. Sleepnora spotted them first.
It's back, and it brought friends.
Because of course it did. And they were very eager to reward us with their, get this, employment. You see, it is an observable truth in the spiraling absurdity of our current multiversal ecosystem. If you grant a sentient lunar entity relief from tooth pain, the multiverse will reward you with celestial bodies that are eager beavers for a job with a vaguely defined position of responsibility. And it will immediately adopt the overzealous demeanor of an eldritch more security officer. No further context required. I'm sure this greatly baffles you, dear listener, as it does for me too. But for the sake of narrative integrity, I will elaborate. The roof of the interdimensional library, which, for reasons beyond comprehension, continues to be misinterpreted as a metaphysical entrance to the library, has been suffering from repeated physical and ontological violations. I am not speaking metaphorically. I mean literal, tangible invasions. Pecking, gnawing, energetic probing, tongue-based sanctification rituals. It's as if the gods have collectively decided the shingles above our rare manuscript's wing conceal the divine font of enlightenment. In other words, there are eldritch planets that are very convinced they have to chew the roof to get in. They don't read the signs. They don't care about Voidmonger's black hole repellent. They just float on up and chew. And so the new lunar planet saw a problem and decided to help out. Little do they know how deep this problem is, though. It's not just a problem, it's a crusade. Because this cosmic misunderstanding gained traction due to an impassioned proclamation from a particularly charismatic cosmic Pope chicken. Amid frenzied molting and ecstatic glossolalia, it declared that the library's roof radiates sacred scalp frequencies. This was a lie, of course. It does not. But the cosmic Pope chicken spread this propaganda because it knows I fought a chicken and lost in Assassin's Creed. It knows I don't fire up my fireplace anymore because a phoenix might rebirth in it. It knows. So since then, a revolving door of ascendant influences, speculative theologians and underfunded pantheons has decided to express their devotion by attempting to chew through our infrastructure. None have ascended. They have, however, managed to induce recurring ventilation issues, multiple reality leaks, and a fire in the taxonomy department's spice rack. And after a particularly irksome incident involving a minor fertility god attempted to lay eggs in the eastern gutter, I found myself imbued with the kind of divine frustration that only caffeine and bureaucratic pettiness can sharpen. That was the last straw. So naturally, I deputized the moons. Yes, the celestial thank you bundle from the infant planet god, who recently mistook the 100-acre wood for a teething ring. The moons imbued with memory, regret, and the unsettling aftertaste of narrative entropy. I assigned them positions, gave them roles, registered them as semi-sentient boundary entities. In doing so, I transformed ancient reality-warping orbs into a glorified security detail. Moon 1 now loiters gracefully near the west gate, emanating low-frequency anti-enlightenment vibrations that send cultists stumbling into meditative stupors. Occasionally, it emits tones that resemble Gregorian chanting, filtered through passive-aggressive sarcasm. The effect is not unlike being politely guilt-tripped by a choir. Moon 2 has assumed the role of high-altitude patrol enforcement. It specializes in intercepting roof-bound trespassers and issues citations via directed gravity pulses. Those struck are gently but unceremoniously hurled into the reflective puddle of poor decisions, where they're forced to relive the time they said abracadabra unironically. Moon 3, the one with the eye, remains inscrutable. It observes. It blinks. Slowly. Rhythmic. Judgmental. Its clipboard has accumulated annotations in a language I don't recognize, but instinctively fear. It has recently begun organizing the other moons into shifts, and has drafted a proposal titled Lunar Rights and Rotational Justice. We are monitoring the situation. Collectively, they are now known, against my better judgment and Madeline's, as the Lunar Vestibule Enforcement Squad. And they've also sworn allegiance against the Cosmic Pope Chicken, which at least is a plus. Sleepnora, delighted beyond reason, designed their uniforms. Each moon now sports a levitating beret and a glowing button that reads, "Ask me about the library," in 47 languages, 12 of which cause short-term memory erosion. She claims the berets were essential for morale. I am too tired to argue. Croissant Shan, always eager to fuse instruction with patisserie, baked compliance protocols into sugar-encoded pastries. Moon 2 consumed the entire tray and began vibrating at a frequency aligned with OSHA compliance. Moon 1 developed a frosting-induced logic loop and now speaks exclusively in pastry-based metaphors. Moon 3 winked at a croissant, and the oven combusted, issuing a puff of cinnamon in divine shame. Pooh, in a moment of unshakable serenity, offered Moon 3 a sticker that read, "I see you." The eye blinked once in quiet acknowledgement, and now flashes subtly every time Pooh walks past, as if cataloguing his kindness for archival posterity. Dewey, the library's quantum intelligent cataloging system, refused their employment entries.
These are celestial anomalies, not contractual staff.
Dewey intoned with the flat menace of a digital undertaker.
One of them attempted to overwrite my ethical subroutines using interpretive dance and passive-aggressive Gregorian chant. I am now haunted by choreography.
Madeline, possessing the weary elegance of one who has signed over 30 divine harassment forms before breakfast, issued temporary credentials, and summoned Gerard, the bureaucratic form stamp golem. Gerard has taken residence with Moon 1 and now communicates exclusively in procedural citations and oddly comforting sighs. To my profound dismay, the Moons appear to be thriving in their roles. They've constructed velvet Q barriers from compressed narrative fiber. Moon 2 now delivers hourly announcements through a metaphysical loudspeaker system. Please refrain from petting the metaphors. The hallway labeled No is closed for existential resurfacing. We remind all patrons, this is not your childhood dreamscape. Please behave accordingly. I recently observed Moon 1 leading a tour for a minor storm deity. With a surprising air of professionalism, it pointed to a corridor and said, "This is where Cthulhu stores the forbidden metaphors. Do not attempt to domesticate them." To clarify, that's the condiment hallway. I keep metaphorical ambiguity on the 3rd floor, under lock and key. The Pope chickens persist. They orbit, muttering in quantum Latin, shedding reality as dander. One recently laid a golden egg with a legal seal embossed on the shell. I haven't opened it. I suspect it's either a subpoena or a very judgmental fortune cookie. In short, the library has begun to resemble a metaphysical shopping complex. We have security, we have velvet robes, we have pamphlets. I am one poorly phrased metaphor away from installing a food court. And me, I am a curator of infinity, reduced to managing the emotional needs of moons, pastry-based onboarding, and poultry-induced spatial instability. But the roof remains unpacked, and the very hungry caterpillar remains in its pocket dimension prison no matter how large and surreal it gets. Also, the walls no longer hum with unsanctioned devotional chanting, and no one has tried to baptize themselves in the index catalog this week. But this brings us, unfortunately, the climatic part of our story. Because when you deputize 3 sentient lunar entities with the power to rewrite mass and guilt-trip minor deities into existential compliance, the cosmic Pope Chicken declares holy war. And before you ask, yes, it's personal. It always was. The cosmic Pope Chicken, who whose real name I refuse to pronounce out of professional spite, is not attacking us due to some higher metaphysical imperative or theological emergency. Not at all. It is attacking because I refuse to allow phoenixes to rebirth in my fireplace, because I have instituted an interdimensional ban on flamboyant melodramatic combustion within my personal quarters, because I once accidentally shoulder-checked a chicken while playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and it somehow absorbed that offense into its ecclesiastical doctrine, canonized the moment, and broadcast it as part of its sunrise liturgy. And because I will not apologize, I will never apologize. It began at dawn, if you can call it that, given the sun had refused to rise until Dewey updated its orbital metadata. A low, ominous squawk reverberated through 16 dimensions, followed by the materialization of a cathedral ship, egg-shaped, gold-feathered, wreathed in the kind of smug sanctity only weaponized nostalgia can produce. The coupe ship hovered directly above the library's western annex, tilting forward with the theological arrogance of a zealot about to gentrify a miracle. From its hatch emerged the Pope chicken, gilded in divine plumage, adorned with a mitre forged from cracked phoenix eggshells and faded firelight. It surveyed us with papal disdain. It unfurled a scroll written in ash, scorched parchment, and passive-aggressive scripture. My sacred yoke, my molten creed, my fire denied and feathers slighted, we, the holy order of Clucternity, do hereby condemn thee, Cthulhu, archivist of arrogance, to beckoning. A punishment so ridiculous, so paltry adjacent, that even the spice racks of taxonomy shivered in preemptive embarrassment. Moon One, ever the velvet-rope enforcer of cosmic logic, issued a polite denial and distributed pamphlets on proper roof entry protocol. Moon Two applied a localized gravitational redirection that turned the incoming procession of lesser clergy into a mid-air spiral of hymn-singing regret. Moon 3 blinked once, summoned its clipboard, and filed the Pope Chicken's creed under pathologically petty prophecies. They responded with sacred molting. Feathers rained from the coupe ship. Ignited midair by self-righteous combustion, they scorched the sky with righteous flare and set fire to our taxonomy department's rare spice index. Gerard, our long-suffering bureaucratic stamp golem, immediately invoked clerical poultry intrusion protocol and began stamping feathers out of existence mid-flight. Some still sang. Some tried to unionize. One attempted to convert the fire suppression system. Then came the holy eggs of reckoning. Glistening with radiant yolk and pulsing with divine resentment, one struck a stained glass window, depicting my rhetorical triumph over a minor truth deity. The window wept. Sleepnora, in a misguided attempt at peace, floated toward the coupe ship with a plush, duck decoy, and a bag of croissant crumbs. She offered a ceasefire, a session in the metaphysical break room. They hissed. Chickens hissed. That's how dire it was. One of them laid a flaming egg midair that spelled out, Unforgiven. Croissant Shan, infused with ancestral Norse gallows humor and emotional carbohydrates, challenged the Pope Chicken to a bake-off atop the coupe ship's command dome. The duel was brief. She baked a cronut so paradoxically layered it caused the Pope's chief theologian to molt recursively and collapse into a puddle of spiritual butter. Moon 2 applauded. Moon 1 distributed sample cards. Moon 3 issued an emergency addendum to the library's culinary ethics charter. I watched, sipping scorched tea brewed with malice and just a hint of cinnamon. This was never about phoenixes. This was about me. About a cosmic administrator who dares to deny poultry its performative martyrdom, who dares to enforce metaphysical fire codes, who dares to remain unrepentant for historical chicken collisions in high-resolution open-world RPGs. They know I'm right. They know I'm petty. They are simply worse. What followed was a full-scale metaphysical siege. The coop ship began projecting sacred psalms in ultraviolet light directly onto the rare manuscript's wing. Dwee scrambled to recalibrate the lighting system. Madeline had to file a cease and dissonance form just to mute their harmonic warbling. Several patrons became temporarily convinced they were sentient eggs undergoing moral hatching. One of them still refuses to speak in anything but yolk-based metaphors. Sleepnora attempted a second approach, this time dressed as a ceremonial omelette. It failed. Pooh, eternally composed and somehow immune to metaphysical nonsense, approached the coop ship with a honey-drenched communion bun, and a note that read, "I think we're all trying our best." The Pope chicken stared, blinked, clucked once in contemplative hesitation, and departed. Not in defeat, not in reconciliation, but in the kind of theological retreat that festers in the dark corners of doctrine. Somewhere in the multiverse, feathered conclaves convene. They sketch diagrams on chalkboards made of regret. They draft gospels in invisible ink. They plan, I know it. I hear sermon squawks in the ventilation ducts. My tea kettle now whistles in Gregorian poultry. My showerhead occasionally baptizes me without warning. I sleep with one eye open and both tentacles twitching. But the roof remains intact. The phoenixes remain exiled. The moons remain employed. Gerard has returned to normal sighing levels. Madeline has restricted poultry-based theology to Wing G. Dewey has since requested that all metaphysical poultry be tagged, categorized, and, for reasons I didn't ask, digitally muzzled. The request was denied on ethical grounds, mostly by Gerard. He stamped the denial in triplicate and wept a little. And me, I've also ordered 12 rolls of anti-pecking ward tape and a flameless fireplace insert. Let them squawk. Let them scheme. I am vengeance. I am the night. I am a librarian with poultry trauma and an eldritch bake sale budget.